All right, so switching over to the MVP race now, because I think this is something that has really become more wide open. Last episode, we talked about the Kevin Durant injury. So if you're looking for that, all the impacts on Brooklyn go back there. But, KD was somebody, I think the three that were going to mind right away were Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. I mean, Jokic was in the conversation as well, I think, but it felt like people weren't putting him there. I don't really know why, especially when you see the weight that Jokic is carrying this year. But since then, it's become a bit more wide open. Steph has been slumping the past few weeks. I'll pull up his shooting numbers here in a sec. But then obviously Kevin Durant with the injury has certainly thrown, with him now missing 2 months essentially, that kind of throws a wrench into his chances to win MVP. As great as LeBron is playing, the Lakers aren't exactly playing well this year. So I think that again kind of, takes a little bit of a heat there. But yeah, I mean, Steph Curry, again, really going back, he broke the record, but going back to December 28th, 6 of 16, 8 of 18, 3 of 17, 5 of 24, 10 of 21, 8 of 21, 4 of 11, 7 of 15, 6 of 11, 12 of 27, 6 for 21, 5 for 20 their last game against Utah. And again, the Warriors are winning. It's not like they've fallen off a cliff here. I mean, Phoenix has taken a pretty commanding lead here in the Western Conference. It also helps that they won 7 in a row. But they are, the Warriors still got some distance between Memphis and Utah, so that's good. I don't think you're quite in panic mode there. But in terms of the MVP race, I definitely think Steph has cooled off a bit since the record, as the Warriors have cooled off a bit as well. I think his chances have dropped. I mean, to me, we're right back where we were last year. I think you've got Jokic just going absolutely crazy, dominating every advanced stat that you could look for right now in Denver. And then again, without Michael Porter Jr., without Jamal Murray, with Will Barton being in and out of the lineup, pretty much every meaningful player has missed some sort of time for Denver this year. And then just Joel Embiid has been absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it feels like he's been dropping 38 points every single night since December started. I mean, it feels like making a run at the scoring title this year, which is just ridiculous. I mean, obviously you and I are biased as Sixers fans, but the guy's been completely unstoppable every night. And again, this is without Ben Simmons. This is with Tobias Harris being pretty bad largely. I mean, we're looking the way the roster is currently built, probably with Tyrese Maxey being the second best player on this team, but those two guys have taken the lead right now. I think right now we're in a dogfight, and it's going to stay that way as long as this keeps up. For me, I guess the question with Jokic is just going to be for the voters is, do they have MVP fatigue? I think that's stupid personally, given how well Jokic is playing this year, but we've seen that be a thing in the past where that has worn on some writers.
Yeah, I mean, personally, so I could see the voter fatigue coming in, but I agree with you. Between Jokic and Embiid, I feel like we get into this every year. It's the how do you value the value part of the MVP, right? Where's your definition of the value go? If you take the 76ers and take Joel Embiid off the team, where are they? You take Jokic off the Nuggets, where are they? And I think both of those answers would be pretty far down the list. Whereas, you could probably make the same argument for Curry, and that's why I think for me, Steph Curry's still up there right now. He is slumping, like you were saying. I was just looking at his stats while you were talking about it. I think in his last 5 games, he's shooting 30% from 3. He's 3.
And he had a game winner in one of those games for what it was worth. The game against Houston, he had a game winner. So I do think, that matters in context. But yeah, he's for sure.
To that, I think, I almost want to throw Ja Morant in the mix a lot too, because you look at, the Suns, the Warriors, the Grizzlies, you look at their record, 37, 34, 32 wins. I mean, that would be enough to be number 1 in the East. So we have to look at it through that filter too, where we see the Heat and the Bulls and the Nets, 1, 2, and 3, but it's they wouldn't even be 4 right now in the West. So, in terms of that standings, I think, Curry still gets a little bit of that credit where he's still 4 games ahead of anybody in the East. Ja Morant's 2 games ahead of anybody in the East. And again, this is no dig at the Suns. I mean, they're 7 games ahead of everybody, so they should probably have somebody in this conversation too. But That's why I think John Morant should get some love and at least be on the list. I was looking at the MVP odds for Caesars Sportsbook. Curry's still number one. He's only plus 180 right now. Giannis is number two, and these were yesterday, so 124 is when these were put out. Giannis is number two. Jokic and Embiid were essentially tied for 3 and 4 at plus 600, and then John Morant was number 5 at plus 1,000.
See, that's funny. There's slightly difference. Like, I'm looking at DraftKings odds right now, and it's basically the same order. The odds are a little different. Steph is still number one at plus 170. Giannis is plus 325. Jokic is plus 550. Embiid is plus 700, and John Morant's plus 1,400. Draymond Green given Ja a good little push the other day too. When somebody asked him, they're like, "Oh, should he be in most improved player?" Category, like, is he already locked that up? And Draymond's like, he should be, more in the MVP discussion. I absolutely 100% agree with that. I mean, if Memphis finishes 3 in the Western Conference, John Morant absolutely has to be an MVP discussion.
And I completely agree with you, but I guess the counter argument to it would be when Morant was out with the injury, they didn't falter at all. Like, they didn't lose. They played amazingly. The role players stepped up and they didn't lose. So that whole you take John Morant off the team, we saw it. Again, it was only for a very small portion of time. And so I get it, but you take him off the team and they didn't falter.
Yeah, I hate that argument sometimes. But I'm with you though, because it's like, if you take Memphis is better right now than some of these other, like with Jokic and Embiid, you're right. If you take Jokic out right now or you take Embiid right now, like these teams plummet. Like they plummet. I'm talking out of the playoff picture. The Sixers would be, I think, playing closer for a 1 pick than they would be to making the playoffs. Denver, it would have been a little different. It had some of their supporting cast been back, but even I don't think Aaron Gordon and Will Barton win you a ton of games in the Western Conference. So, that would for sure be tough sledding. I thought Jokic would be above Giannis, I got to be honest, just more because of where the Bucks are in the standings. Obviously, I think Giannis could win MVP every year. Like, he's that caliber of player. But I thought he would be up a little higher. Going further down, KD is 6 on DraftKings right now still. DeRozan is 7. LeBron is 8. Luka is 9.
DeRozan's the fun one, I think. From like a gambler side of things, is like DeRozan's the one that you could definitely tell me gets it because he has to do so much. And if the Bulls stay where they are while everybody's injured, I know Zach LaVine's back, but say DeMar DeRozan is the guy and keeps them number 1 or number 2 in the East, and he goes off and does his thing. It's like, well, then maybe he legitimately has a chance. And from a betting perspective, his his plus whatever he is, like, you could make a ton of money off that. You
could. It's just it gets to a point. Here we go. Should I do this again? It gets to a point where when you hit a certain level where it's probably not going to happen, where it's just like, are you throwing money away? Like, my Venmo's open if you're just going to throw money away. This is all in reference to my Atlanta Hawks bet last year, which almost netted a ton of money.
You're going to be putting $10 on DeMar DeRozan tomorrow night.
Right. So if anybody would like to bet movie $10, I'll put it on for DeMar DeRozan. No, because it is. DeRozan's odds are good, and DeRozan's value is, and especially if Chicago stays afloat. After we talked about the injuries earlier in the episode, if Chicago stays afloat, like, that's only going to help DeRozan's case. I think given the way that they started, you can make a strong argument. Here's the reality. I don't think there's any planet where he finishes above Embiid or Jokic. I don't think there's any planet where even with Steph slumping, he finishes ahead of Steph. And then he still has a Giannis to potentially climb at that point. Like, I think they're all better players, and that's what makes it tough for MVP. Is like it has to be the combo. You have to be one of the best players in the league and be in a situation where you're super duper meaningful and are carrying the weight. Like, if everybody was healthy on the Nets, I don't think Kevin Durant would be in MVP discussions. If Klay Thompson had been healthy all year, I think Steph's stock maybe drops a little bit. I think that's been one of the things that's helping John Morant. Obviously, is like the Grizzlies are leaping and all their young guys are leaping, but like Ja's development is pretty much the biggest reason for that. Like, no disrespect to Jaren Jackson and Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane and all the rest of the guys, but Ja has a better argument to me than DeRozan does. Like, if we're talking breakout squads, Memphis is better than Chicago is right now. I think if there was anybody that I would take a sleeper flyer on, it would be Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is really low right now, like plus 12,500. Like, Miami's back to number 1. They're starting to get healthier. Jimmy's playing great basketball. Like, he's somebody that I think has for some value. But if Jokic and Embiid keep on the tear that they're on right now, I think it's going to be a 1-2 race there. Like, I think those two in particular are going to jump both Giannis and Steph Curry on the, like, in terms of the betting odds. But, especially with Jokic, again, like, if Jokic gets them to be like a 5 or a 6 seed with all the injuries they've had, I feel like, and given the he's having one of the best offensive seasons and like, forget modern era, like NBA history offensively right now. And so is Embiid. That's why it's crazy. Like, Embiid has just been right there with him for this past month and a half.
They are both averaging more than 25 points and 10 rebounds per game. And NBA.com put out a really cool article about their isolation scoring and their post-up game specifically. I don't want to bore everybody with the numbers, but it's definitely a really cool read. I mean, Embiid's 9th in the league for isolation scoring. I think Jokic was right up there too. And then on top of that, Embiid's got his career best 3-point shooting. Jokic is in the top 10 for assists per game overall. And so, there's a lot of stats that'll back up that argument for Embiid and Jokic. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like you said, not to keep just coming back and circling back to that point, but the value for both of these guys and what they mean to their teams and what their teams look like should they both not be on the floor, it plummets. I mean, it gets very bleak for both of these franchises very fast.
I think you mentioned, we probably already mentioned it, but Kevin Durant, I mean, he's about to miss a month essentially with this knee injury. It may be more when it's all said and done. And I think that just might be enough to really hurt his chance at getting it.
Yeah, for sure. I think KD missing time is definitely going to hurt it. I think if anything, the best thing that it will boost, or if there's going to be a boost, it'll be for James Harden. James Harden's going to have to carry a lot of the freight now for Brooklyn, with Kyrie still being part-time.
You saw that report about Harden, huh?
Oh, what, Harden being bailed out? Yeah, no, but here's the problem.
No, about his interests in potentially being traded to Philly.
Well, it'd be great if he wants to be traded to Philly, but it should probably happen this year before Philly goes and runs the risk of pissing Joel Embiid off because he's playing so well and they don't actually make a trade. Like, listen, Daryl Morey's got to get something to happen. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, you cannot waste a season of Embiid like this. You just cannot. If you have to be serious when he's playing this well. Again, because this all comes back to the fact too that I don't think Joel Embiid has a LeBron James-esque 38-year career. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. But like, he's a 5. He takes the beating more. Like, he's not going to age the way a guard will. You have to take a swing or you run the risk. To me, I mean, he's locked into the contract. So I think that helps. Like, there's not the way it was hanging over Milwaukee potentially with Giannis where they didn't have the contract done. Like, Embiid being locked into a contract helps, but you run the risk of it starting to get murky and him wanting out. And if Joel Embiid leaves, the franchise is a joke.
Well, and to me, it's a lot like for a cross sport example. It's a lot to me like the Rams in a way where it's like they saw that they had potential to do it and they freaking went all in. They went and got a quarterback that they thought could do it. They literally just got everybody, and so that's what I feel like with the Sixers is like, if you feel like you've got a shot at it, you got to swing. You don't swing just to hit get a base hit. You're swinging for a home run now. So no.
Well, okay, so look at Denver. Denver is a great comparison. Denver's in a tougher situation because a lot of their stuff they can't control, obviously, with Jamal Murray getting hurt and with Michael Porter Jr. getting hurt. But going for Aaron Gordon was the prime example there, where it's like, I know that is, Aaron Gordon's not necessarily a superstar, but that's the type of move that you make where it's like, yo, we're serious about competing. Yeah. We feel like we've got the roster to go for this. I feel like I still say this, like, I think Denver could have won the West had they been completely healthy, both last year and this year, given the way that Jokic is playing. I just think when you have somebody that's supremely talented, like, there's an argument that Joel Embiid is playing these past 2 years the best basketball that you and I have ever seen a Sixer play in our lifetime. And Barkley was a kid, or Barkley, we were like young kids. Like, we're talking 2, 3, 4 years old when Barkley was playing for us. But we watched Iverson's career and we're, a part of all that. I vividly remember his MVP year. Embiid is different, man. Like Embiid is on another level. And like you mentioned the ISO scoring, that to me has been the most impressive part. It's that, the worry with Embiid is in late games is that he gets tired and he gets fatigued, and you just can't really operate out of the post in late games. Where Jokic's game, just because of how good of a passer he is and how much a little bit better of a shooter than he is than Embiid, kind of opens up more.
Yeah,
Embiid has kind of put some of those narratives to the side this year, and that I think has been the most impressive part of his development this particular year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, to the assist thing, for Embiid's side, he's fourth among all centers for assists per game at like 4.5 a game. So like he is doing the assists like you were saying. I mean, it's not like Jokic at almost 8 per game, but
and just the fact that he's in the scoring title convo in such a guard heavy league, like a guard centric league,
right.
And in a 3-point dominated league, like this is a harken back to the 90s, to the early 2000s. Like Joel Embiid does play a dying brand of basketball, if you will. The dying brand of basketball doesn't matter when you're the best at it. So that's what we say with DeMar DeRozan in the midi. That's what we say with, it works until somebody can stop it. And Lord knows it's been working right now for Embiid.